The streets are wet, it's cold outside, but we're still out on the streets of Buena Park showing you what the police department does just for the community. This is Crime Watch.
Hello. Today I want to talk to you about the current climate of law enforcement in this country. It's really disheartening, and I thought that I would take an opportunity to speak to you about my feelings on the topic. You can see that on my badge I'm wearing what we call a mourning band, and that mourning band is worn by all law enforcement officers when an officer is killed in the line of duty in the state of California. This year alone, 6 weeks into the year, nationwide there has already been 18 law enforcement officers that have died in the line of duty, 1/3 of them by gunfire. In my 37 years in law enforcement, I've never seen such a lack of respect for our profession and such violent attacks on our officers. More officers are being shot and killed than ever before. This past Monday, we lost another officer in California. Officer Keith Boyer of the Whittier Police Department was shot and killed after he and his partner were investigating a traffic collision in the city of Whittier. And many of you may have seen the press conference on television where their chief, Jeff Piper, stated, "We need to wake up. Enough is enough. You're passing these propositions and you're creating these laws that are raising the crime rates in the state of California." What Chief Piper was referring to was Assembly Bill 109, Proposition 47, and Proposition 57, and to some extent, the recent Proposition 64. You need to take a moment and you need to look up and educate yourself on what these propositions were and how they impact community safety. We know that these propositions are a result of the voting public, and that AB 109 was passed by the state legislature, who were also voted into office by the voting public. Every state association representing law enforcement, the chiefs, the sheriffs, police officers, the district attorneys association, opposed this legislation and these propositions. We knew what was going to happen if they passed. AB 109 was signed by the governor in 2011 after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that California prisons were overcrowded. AB 109 moved certain felony offenders back into the county jail system. As a result, thousands of criminals were released back into our local communities. Prop 47 stopped some nonviolent criminals from going into prison. It also reduced certain felony crimes to misdemeanors. The goal of the initiative was to fund additional substance abuse and mental health services with the savings from housing incarcerations, from lowering incarcerations. We have not seen this come to fruition yet. Since the passing of these propositions, the increase in property crime in California is the largest year after year increase since the 1960s. The increase in violent crime is the largest year after year increase since the 1990s. As a result, what we are seeing are repeat offenders committing multiple crimes because they know that there are no consequences and that they will not be held accountable. There are no consequences for these crimes any longer. It's a revolving door for these criminals, and they know it. The suspect that shot and killed Whittier police officer Boyer was a parolee who had just been recently released from prison for armed robbery. Since being released from prison in April of 2016, he violated his parole 5 times by committing a number of additional criminal offenses. He served what is known as flash incarcerations. In a flash incarceration, an offender serves a 10-day jail sentence in county jail for a parole violation instead of being sent back to prison as was in the past. Flash incarcerations were authorized under AB 109, which was signed into law by Governor Jerry Brown in 2011. This needs to stop. I am asking you to educate yourself and make sure that you understand what you're voting for. The senseless killing of law enforcement officers cannot continue. We, and I emphasize we, need to make sure that those that commit crimes are held more accountable for their actions. I want you to know that I truly appreciate all of the support I get from the Buena Park community. And I just want to thank you for your time.
Hello and welcome to Crime Watch. I'm Jane Cameron with Sergeant Mike Levchick at the wheel. So we are just leaving a call that we have never talked about on the show, which is pretty amazing. But it's sad as well. And it came out as someone who was trying to jump off the bridge onto the freeway.
That's exactly what the call was. It was a report of somebody standing or climbing over the security rail of one of our local freeways here in the overpasses, and yeah, that's one of those calls that really gets you going real fast. So,
what kind of training do the officers have to know what to say to someone who's got that intent?
You know, there's regular patrol officers don't necessarily get a training on how to talk somebody off of a bridge or out of suicide. But you know, I'll tell you this much, it's just a matter of reaching out and being human to somebody. You know, a lot of times these people, they just want somebody to listen to them. They want some help. They're reaching out. It's a cry for help, basically, is what you're looking at. And now, in my case, I was a crisis negotiator for many years on our SWAT team. So I rolled out on this one because I thought maybe to myself that I could be able to help this person. I have received that kind of training, but not to say that I'm any better or any worse than anybody else in our department, because there's been times where we would go out on a negotiation situation and a regular patrolman is handling the initial negotiations and they're doing a great job. So a lot of times we'll assess the situation and see how they're doing. If we need to take over, we'll take over. But in situations like this, like I said, it's one of those things where you know, if you just have a bit of empathy and a bit of compassion in your blood, you'd be able to think of the right things to say.
Why were there so many Buena Park officers at the scene?
Well, a lot of it has to do with safety practices. We don't know what this guy's what's on his mind. What he could have very easily, even though when we got there he was not up on top of the fence. However, people were saying that he was there already, and he had indicators that he was indeed up, at least trying to climb the fence. I don't know if he got to the top or not, but just in case the guy goes squirrely on us and decides to try to run into traffic or something like that, at least we can kind of form a little bit of a barrier around him and stop him from doing something like that.
I noticed that the California Highway Patrol also stopped by.
Right, because they'll get calls of situations like that as well too. And if it was one of those situations where the guy was actually up on top of the railing already, which I've seen before, like I told you before, and he could fall or jump at any minute. What we try to do is obviously get the freeway closed as quickly as possible. That way, it's having anything fall off of a bridge on top of a moving car. It could kill the person that hits them too. That's what we're really trying to avoid. So what they would do, what the highway patrol would do, is run a traffic brake and stop whatever direction of travel that he or she is standing over. So that way, if they do jump or fall, they're not endangering anybody else.
Well, this ended on a hopeful note.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, like I said, when we got there, he was already off of the railing if he had even tried to climb up there. But the officers, I was talking to them as they were talking with the guy, and they said that he says he was having some family issues and some problems, and he needed help. And so our officers are going to accommodate him, and we're going to take him down to a local hospital for an evaluation. But like I said, the one nice thing about it is that, like you said, we have compassion for this person. This guy, he wanted to smoke a cigarette before we left, so we gave him that ability to do that. And it's one of those things where it's taken another 5 or 10 minutes out of our time, but you know what? If it makes him feel that much better, then it's probably time well spent.
Well, as you can tell, it's kind of a little bit of a rainy, cold day, but it's not because we're staying in the car that we keep talking in the car, but we're en route to a bomb scare.
Yeah, one of our local businesses received a letter in the mail that somebody was going to put explosives underneath some employees' cars that work at this particular business. I don't have a whole lot of information on it, but what we're doing now is we got officers out there already, and they're basically out there just to kind of check and see what's going on. We have to obviously give some seriousness to these types of calls. You never know what's going to happen. But at the same time, we don't want to start a panic or anything like that at all and have everybody, freaking out over there. So what we're doing is we got a lot of officers heading over that way. They're going to start checking around cars. If they were to find anything suspicious, obviously, then it would be a call out to the bomb squad.
I'm getting the impression so far that the police department is just not about the normal stuff, but there's all sorts of different things that happen when you're out on patrol.
It's just like any other job in law enforcement. You just never know what's going to happen day to day. It could be absolutely quiet. Matter of fact, we've had nights like that where we're driving around trying to find something to do. But yet then in another day, you could have calls stacked up this high, and you just never know what's going to happen.
So we're here now at the location the officers cleared that were assigned to the call.
Right, they
which happens to us sometimes.
that does happen for us, but no, they found nothing. They were able to look under the cars of the employees, and they found nothing suspicious. All the employees have left, but they also were able to collect the actual note that was mailed to the establishment.
Because that's still a crime, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's a very, very serious crime. Matter of fact, it's to the point where, you can't go, I was just kidding. I didn't really mean that. I was just wanted to see what happened. Those types of crimes are, you don't have to have the actual furthering of trying
the act or
yeah,
result.
Exactly. So even just sending in something like that to get a reaction of fear or dread out of somebody like that, that's still a very serious crime. So we obviously take that very seriously, and they'll be taking a crime report on it as well.
So we're heading out to another call. I want you to listen to the radio because you're going to hear a beep that pretty much keeps everybody off the radio, right? When there's there it is, when there's a higher type situation going on.
Go ahead.
Of course, he's paying more attention to the driving. Sergeant Levchik, do you want to explain what we're going to?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I'm a little confused myself, but we have detectives that were out on a surveillance and on a stolen car. Now, one of the detectives got on the radio, and it sounded like the car was moving. And so what we're doing now is that he's asking for emergency response.
So we're going fast.
We're going fast. There's other units that are a lot closer, but we're still going to get there in a hurry. And so anyway, but what happened, the initial confusion, I thought there was another call that was going on as well too. And I didn't know, I couldn't tell if they were going to that call or what. So you got to kind of stop for a second and go, okay, what are we working on here? So I was finally able to figure out that they got the car is rolling. The other incident has nothing to do with this.
So again, there was a car that they were watching because it had a low jack system on it and it was activated, and they found the car.
Correct. And they were doing the surveillance on it to see if they could find the bad guy that stole the car. But what happened is that after all the surveillance was going on, somebody jumped into it and started driving away real fast before we could move into it right away. So it sounds like the car split, and it sounds like they may have abandoned it, and they'll probably end up setting up a perimeter to see if they can't box the bad guy in.
So what's going on now is they are setting up that perimeter. So even though Sergeant Levchik isn't part of the patrol services out, he's still, as a supervisor, paying a lot of attention to what's going on. So we don't want to disturb you too much, but can you explain what that beeping is? That there it went again.
Yeah, the beep on the radio, what that does is it reminds people that there is some emergency traffic going on right now. So because what happens a lot of times if you're not paying attention and you get on the radio to call in something really mundane, like can I get there's a cat on the side of the street here that we need to have the animal control people come out. You get stuff like that on the radio, and it interrupts everything that's going on out there. So it reminds people, hey,
to shut up
and listen to the radio. That's it, exactly it. So as you heard though, as you mentioned though, I'm even though I'm still in a specialized assignment doing this CrimeWatch, I still listen to this stuff because in case the supervisor, the field supervisor is not around, I can jump right in and help him out. But it sounds like they've got the place pretty well surrounded.
What's interesting for you as the viewer is you kind of get to see how things operate in the field. We were mentioning how things come up that are not the ordinary, and it's also the last minute. All of a sudden, we were actually going to do a different segment at another location that wasn't even equal to this.
See what I told you before? It's like you could have something so mundane going on, and then the very next second you get something real exciting going on that is obviously a lot more interesting than the other story that we were going to do.
And what's interesting for you, the viewer, is that, we always try to make these shows interesting, but the cameraman and I, we think we're the Crime Stoppers for Buena Park, because every time we come out on a shoot, all of a sudden the city is really quiet, which is great. It's safer for you, but it doesn't make for an interesting show either.
Tonight's been very interesting because, like I said, there's like you said, there's plenty of times where there's nothing really going on, but tonight we've had all kinds of interesting stuff in one evening.
And we've only been out for an hour and a quarter.
And we haven't even gotten there yet.
All we want is the bad guys to get caught and everybody else to be okay and not be hurt.
Matter of fact, like I said, right now what they're doing is they're setting up a perimeter, because they last saw the guy jumping over some fences. So what they're doing is they're getting some officers around the area and hopefully hold the suspect in that particular area, and hopefully we'll be able to flush him out.
And it's getting dark, so it's going to be harder to see. There's going to be shadows.
Oh yeah, that's very true.
So we're at the location of where all this activity is going. It's just down the street. But it sounds like this is going to be going on for a while tonight.
It's really interesting because not only did they find the other stolen car again, they've also found another stolen car on the same property. So what it's probably turning out to be is maybe some sort of an auto theft ring of sorts. I don't know exactly what's going on over there, but you just don't have two or more stolen cars on your property at one time.
Right. And because they're kind of still watching everything, they're under surveillance, we're not going to go over there and spoil things for them. They don't like cameras in situations like that.
Certainly don't. Matter of fact, it's funny that because we're still a good half a block away from it, but it's still a very active situation. They've gone up and made contact at the original house where they actually saw the original stolen car at, and now like I said, they found another stolen car on that same property that was back in the shadows. So, like I said, it's a very fluid situation right now. They have put out the code forward that they're okay for now, but it's like I said, it's definitely evolving.
And that's why we're not turning on the camera light either, so we're kind of in the dark.
Exactly.
Not literally, but yeah. All right.
But yeah, like I said, it's a real interesting story because again, like I said, all the excitement and things go on, and we have to get here in one piece, and but it's one of those things where nobody got hurt at the end, and there's probably bad guys going to jail, which is really good.
Yay. There's a reason why there's a fence around the railroad tracks. It means you're not supposed to go on them, right?
Correct.
But people do.
People do. We got a call. We were just checking out the railroad tracks because somebody called and said that they saw some kids playing on or near the tracks. And you're right. The fences are there for a very, very good reason, to keep people off of the railroad tracks, because it's very, very dangerous to be playing in or around the tracks, to be honest with you.
I have to tell you a quick story. Many years ago, because I've been doing CrimeWatch for a long time, there were several instances where people were jogging or walking along the train tracks and were getting killed. And so we did a little piece at the Fullerton Railroad Station with one of the people from the train company to talk about how these trains are dangerous. And we were standing on the platform, and we knew when the train was going to come up behind us. That thing was on us like that. There was no rumbling, there was no noise, you couldn't feel anything, and I was waiting for it. It was crazy.
Just today, matter of fact, today and on last Friday, I arranged for somebody to come through from Metrolink, one of the training officers there, to come and teach at all of our briefings. And it's kind of ironic because today is now we're out here on a kids playing on the tracks call, and he said the very same thing. And I've experienced it over the years too, where you're on or near the train tracks, and you really don't hear it. You cannot, for whatever reason, it's just not registering, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's on you. And it's just so careful. And the guy who was teaching the class was just saying that, you know, if you have to go anywhere near the tracks, just be careful, you know, for the law enforcement purpose of it. If it's just you know, normal people on the streets that are going by the tracks, they need to stay out, period. But if we have a reason to go out towards the tracks, that's the reason why he wants us to be careful.
Train versus car, who wins?
Oh, train wins every time.
Train versus bus?
Ooh. The train will still win, but it's still a bigger animal. But yeah, they're so powerful, they're so big, and yeah, you don't want to go up on that fight.
Well, and it's private property, right?
Well, it's owned by the railroads, the BNSF or Amtrak and those things. I don't know exactly who owns it, but they all operate on the same tracks. There's, as you can see over here, we're over by our Metrolink area, and there are several tracks on there. And whether or not some of them use specific tracks for specific purposes, like you know, the commercial things and the freight trains and what have you, and or the passenger trains, it's such a wonderful way that they operate it. I don't know how they do it, but apparently there's some way of doing it.
Well, you know, it's unique in the sense that you've got the commuting effort by the people here at the station, but also there are so many businesses along the tracks that use these trains to move huge amounts of product from one end of the country to the other.
Matter of fact, our part of our commercial area that we have over in the Knott and Caballero area, they used to have the spurs that go off, and they would drop off their products and then hook them back up to the cars again, or the trains again, and take things to God knows where. So.
But you still have to be careful
Yes.
and safe on the tracks.
Yes, it's like I said, if there's a fence around it, don't go on it.
Which there usually is, but even if not, a train is good from a distance, but not close up.
They're fun to look at and watch them as they go by, but stay off the property.
If you have any questions about tonight's show, you could call the Buena Park Police Department at 562-3901. Check them out on Facebook, on Twitter, and I don't know what else, but they're really busy on it. You get to hear a lot of good stuff. Anyway, with Sergeant Mike Levchick of the Buena Park Police Department, I'm Jane Cameron. Thanks for watching.